Om Namah Shivaya. Life is experiential, and what one experiences is the only truth. Everything else is secondhand. There is more misinformation, half-truths, myths, opinions, interpretations about COVID than perhaps any other issue in recent times. What I'm sharing here is based upon my own experience of the past 3 months. I consider myself to be quite healthy with a strong immune system. Just a week before I tested positive, I had a comprehensive health checkup done, and there was not a single parameter out of 129 tested that was abnormal. The doctor gave me a clean chit as always, yet I tested positive. And other 4 people with me who were more vulnerable tested negative. There is nothing normal about this disease, and the affliction and impact varies widely from person to person. Hence, it is irresponsible to generalize anything. So why did I get infected? With the guidance of Babaji, I discovered the spiritual aspect of this happening. Since this is a very personal aspect based entirely on one's own belief and surrender to the higher self, I prefer not to discuss it here. My spiritual experience will remain my own. From a medical point of view, it is very important to have a very good doctor on your side. I did, and that too in a relatively small and remote location in Kerala, in a very basic hospital. The first thing he told me when I got admitted was, "We are going to fight this together, and I want you out of here as soon as possible." I got very strong and positive vibes and immediately surrendered myself to his care. I knew I was in good hands. Devi had brought me here for a reason, and she was going to take care of me. Each day he would visit me. He was thrilled I had no symptoms, internal or external. He gradually reduced and then stopped all my medications. I asked, when could I go home? And this is where it gets interesting. I had no home in Kerala, and according to the state rules, I could not go to a hotel. The doctor said he was releasing patients with mild or no symptoms daily to recover at home. It was a better option than to be confined to the depressing hospital environment. On the 3rd and 4th day, he said he had just released 2 critical patients who had recovered miraculously. Immediately, Babaji came to mind. But my situation was different. I was homeless. I asked whether I may rent a car and drive to Bombay. He said yes, that is allowed. But it was not practical. It was going to be a 24-hour drive. So implicitly and unofficially, we came up with a plan. I needed to get a local address, and with the help of Vinayak, my niece's husband, I managed to get it. I was discharged on the 7th day. I learned a lot from the doctor. The infection may show up positive for a very long time, because similar to many other viruses we carry in our body, this too stays for a long time. Did you know that almost every human being has a strain of herpes virus in their body? The key is to make sure they stay dormant and are not activized. And this, of course, is a function of our lifestyle and immune system. Hence, it is not advisable to request to repeat the COVID test after the first positive. I tested positive twice during the week I was in the hospital. So long as you keep testing positive, it has to be reported to the authorities, and then it becomes almost impossible to get out of the system. Hence, The symptoms or lack thereof are the only reliable indication, and a good doctor will monitor and assess them, as was done in the case of Bai, my sister, and myself. In fact, in the case of Bai, there was no COVID test done prior to her hip surgery, even though that is a normal protocol. If she had been tested and was still positive, the surgeon would not be allowed to perform the surgery. The attending pulmonologist who had treated her for COVID gave the go-ahead for the surgery without the need for a test. Same with me. My doctor was confident in my state of health and agreed to discharge me even though it was not entirely as per the rules. The 7, 10, 14 days rule for isolation or quarantine is a guideline and not cast in stone. The attending doctor has a lot of discretion to make exceptions based on individual circumstances. States and other local authorities in India and the US just do not have the manpower or infrastructure to monitor these rules. It is mainly an honor system. As the affected person in consultation with the doctor, I took full responsibility for my actions to minimize any risk to myself and those around me. As with all illnesses, you are the best judge of your body and health. I also learned that in my situation, the chances of infecting someone after 7 days of positive is very, very low. Also, the chances of being infected again, even by another new strain, is very remote, almost nil. In other words, my intention not to be ever vaccinated had been validated by the higher self by helping create the necessary natural antibodies within me. Like many other viral diseases, the antibodies protect you in the future. A vaccination is essentially a lab-derived formula of antibodies derived from the same virus. The problem with a vaccine is that it is a standardized formula given to everyone and may not be suitable for everybody, whereas the antibodies generated from an actual infection are unique to each person's genetic makeup, hence more effective. Today is day 11 after I first tested positive, and almost 2 weeks since the first onset of mild symptoms. I'm feeling absolutely fine and healthy. The future will take care of itself. This disease is all about how it manifests and how, what, and when symptoms show up and how long they last. In hindsight, I realized that 2 or 3 days before I left for Kerala, I had felt mild fatigue and body ache, which disappeared the morning of the flight. It is irrelevant how and when I got the infection. I was quite mobile and active leading up to the positive test, driving around Bombay, visiting Bridge Kutir daily, interacting with various people, but staying in a highly sanitized and sterile hotel in Bombay. It is impossible to know the source of infection. As I drive around Bombay in the car, I see millions of people everywhere going about their life unhindered and not worried. They are not reckless but fearless, and I admire them. And that is the crux of the issue here. Those who live in fear only attract negative vibrations that block the chakras and the nadis. This is not just an esoteric issue and my belief, but my lifelong experience and observation as a healer. In my extended family, a joint family who live together live in constant fear of everything. They are constantly falling sick all the time. There are many such examples I see all the time around me. Falling sick is an inherent part of the human body. Recovering is a function of mental attitude and spiritual surrender to the higher self. It is equally important to be surrounded by people who are positive and do good, what I call satsang. My Shakti was with me all the time, even though she was thousands of miles away. I have rarely met a more positive and strong woman in my life. All of my immediate family in India were generally positive and supportive. But what touched my heart was the message I received from Vinayak's friend in Kochi, who had given me his address as my home. Koi nahi sir, even if there is an ado, hum sambhal lega. Koi aur kaam hukum karo. Meaning, no one has come, sir. Even if there is an ado, I will handle it. Anything else, please ask, order. This is fearlessness in the face of confusing rules and guidelines, inconsistent application of state rules, constantly changing landscape, asinine bureaucratic procedures, overworked medical system made worse by people spreading false information based on half-truths, half-baked knowledge, and generally clueless about their own self. I came to India in October because my sister tested positive when COVID was still raging strong in India, and have since been immersed in the myriad aspects, including getting sucked into it myself. The frontline warriors in this war are the brave and fearless medical workers who are risking their lives each day to care for the patients. Bai's Dr. Pandya once asked Deepa, her nurse, "Are you not afraid to be a COVID nurse?" She replied, "No, sir. I have a 2-year-old daughter. I have to work for her." I saw the same attitude in the small hospital where I was admitted. No one was afraid. During this time, I have traveled and taken flights from Atlanta to Paris to Bombay to Frankfurt to Istanbul to Frankfurt to Bombay to Banaras to Bombay to Dehradun to Bombay to Kochi to Bombay. And now flying back to the biggest hotspot in the world through Paris and Atlanta. It has been a spiritual calling over which I had no control. I have one foot in the US and one foot in India. After my experiences in the last 3 months with hospitals and doctors, I'm glad I was in India when I tested positive. I shudder to think about my well-being if I had been in the US, where the health system is broken, dysfunctional, and rotten to the core. Taking into account both quality and cost, I have no doubt that the Indian medical system is far superior to that in the US. Lastly, whether you accept it, believe it, realize it or not, COVID is a spiritual phenomenon that has descended down on earth to bring mankind on its knees and teach it a lesson. Just as Krishna promises in the Gita to appear every time there is a dharma in the world, so does Kali descend down every time mankind messes around with Mother Nature, Mother Earth, and will not relent until it changes its destructive, consumption-based lifestyle and world order that is playing havoc with this beautiful planet of ours. An individual is just a speck of dust in this cosmic play. Om Namah Shivaya.